News!
Okay, we'll start with this, what is an interesting contest flying low on the radar, set to go down late next month. Choi, former WBA super featherweight champion Choi, looks like she's moving up to lightweight, and she's going to take on Canada's own Jessica Camara.
36 years old to Choi, who's 33, 3 years younger.
Both orthodox fighters, not much between them in terms of the tail of the tape, not much difference. Choi, the former champion and more experienced fighter of the two sports, a professional record of 21 wins with no losses, 1 draw, 5 knockouts.
To Jessica Camara, who sports a professional record of 12 wins with 4 losses, no draws.
3 knockouts, having been knocked out 2 times.
What do I think?
Well, the fight's going down in South Korea, where Choi is based out of. It's going down in South Korea, so that tells me she's got home field advantage, and it's her promoter at the helm of promotions, thus she's the house fighter, she's got home field advantage. And because it's going down at lightweight, well, it can't be because she's targeting an Alicia Baumgartner fight. No, Alicia's still down there at super featherweight, where Choi once reigned as WBA champion.
Not anymore.
This fight between Choi and Jessica, it's for a WBA gold title, what is a lesser version of the full WBA title.
Katie Taylor's still got it. She's still registered as WBA champion, but you will notice that ranked at number 1.
Ranked at number 1 is the United Kingdom's own Caroline Dubois.
Why is that important?
Well, I get the sense that Choi, she's not coming back to super featherweight. She wants to campaign as a lightweight moving forward. This fight for a WBA gold title, it can be interpreted as a segue to one day fight for the full title.
It can.
The caveat being that whoever wins this fight between Choi and Jessica Camara, they may end up having to deal with Caroline Dubois, and that's no easy task. We'll cross that bridge when we get to it. Now, Jessica last saw action in December of last year. She fought 3 times last year.
Got off to a rocky start.
Back in March, she ended up getting knocked out by Carla Zamora in 4 rounds. We talked about that, but then she rebounded off that loss in July with Joanna Lopez and capped off the year with a knockout win over Estefania Oliva.
Good on Jessica.
She's on a 2-fight winning streak, having since rebounded off that loss, whereas Choi, the former champion, she's been a lot less active, a lot less busy. Choi has been averaging 1 fight a year for the last 6 years.
Since 2018, she's only fought once a year, each year.
Comes to Choi, I think there was a time when she was a more consummate professional and a more serious boxer, more dedicated to the sport, but these days she's more of a novelty. Boxing so infrequently, this sparse schedule of activity, really only in between modeling gigs and whatever else she's got going on.
I think she was training here stateside not that long ago.
One of the nuances of women's boxing that you don't see in men's boxing is that the sanctioning bodies at times order fights. They actually order fights between belt holders, between champions. In 2022, Choi was stripped of her WBA title, demoted to a champion in recess on the premise that she couldn't satisfy the WBA's order to unify titles with Alicia Baumgartner.
Choi reigned as WBA champion at that weight for many, many years, but she was relieved of the title because she said she was injured, she couldn't fight Alicia.
Alicia went on to become undisputed champion at that weight. Choi would not return to action until July of the following year opposite the ring Maria Moderna, who she won a unanimous decision against.
It was the only fight she had last year.
This may be the only one she has this one. We'll see. She's facing Jessica Camara, who's best described as a thinker, a mover, a boxer. Not big on power.
But she's fast.
And athletic, rangy, whereas Choi is mostly a mid-range to inside fighter, a combination puncher, a volume puncher.
That's her sweet spot.
She likes to bang on the inside because she's been training abroad, because she's been training right here in the US of A very recently. I'm curious as to what she may have added to her repertoire that she felt so inclined to leave South Korea, where she's based out of, to come here, train here.
Potential banana skin.
Why?
Because Choi hasn't been that active. She's been averaging 1 fight a year for the last 6 years. She's been averaging 1 fight a year since 2018.
Where she only fought once last year, Jessica fought 3 times. So she's gonna be sharp. She ain't got no ring rust to shake off.
Yeah.
Choi may be the house fighter and she may have home field advantage, but at least in previous instances up until this point, she is a limited fighter, very experienced with many rounds in the bank and many years as a champion, many successful title defenses, but still limited.
Offensively minded.
But not always defensible. With Hyun-Mi Choi, it's like her offense is her defense. She tries to wear you out, throwing punches, throwing combinations, but she can be caught in between by a skilled counter-puncher. And Jessica, she's got a boxing brain.
It's a good fight.
For what is a WBA gold title at lightweight, I could have swore 2.5 years ago, the WBA said they were going to be phasing out these secondary trinkets, these baby belts. I guess they're pulling back on that now.
We'll talk more about the fight as the fight date approaches.
In men's junior middleweight news, a continuation to a story I talked about in my previous video, Tszyu will now defend his WBO junior middleweight title versus Sebastian Fundora on March 30th in Las Vegas in the main event of PBC's inaugural pay-per-view on Prime Video. Sources told ESPN. Keith Thurman suffered a bicep injury in training and was forced to withdraw?
I don't trust it.
I know that Keith Thurman is in his mid-30s, and I know that he's been out for 2 years, so it's entirely possible that he injured himself in training, in preparation for this fight. And over the years, he has been an injury-prone fighter, but in spite of all of that, I still don't trust this.
Why?
Keith Thurman, even accepting this fight, struck me as peculiar. Here you have a fighter who hasn't seen action in a long time. This is not a big money fight. It's not for a huge purse or a huge payday. It's not even for a title.
The WBO wouldn't sanction it.
Because Keith's been out so long, because he doesn't even campaign as a junior middleweight, they wouldn't sanction it.
And he took the fight on anyway.
That struck me as odd. The only way I could have interpreted that at that time is that Keith Thurman is strapped for cash, having not boxed in such a long time, and he's cashing out.
That's what I thought.
Now, what I think is that it was never their intention to put Keith in the ring with Tim. It was never going to happen. That this whole time, what they've been planning on doing is pulling the old switcheroo on Tim.
To catch him with his pants down.
Have him train for a welterweight who hasn't boxed in 2 years, a mover in his mid-30s, then at the very last minute, switch out the opponent.
You think they'd do that to him?
I think they're setting him up.
You think they'd do that to him?
I do. And I don't even think this is the first time they tried to set up Tszyu. That fight in Minneapolis against Terrell Gausha.
Back when it was about getting that Jermell Charlo fight.
That fight in Minneapolis against Terrell Gausha, that whole time I felt like what the PBC really wants is for Terrell Gausha to beat Tszyu and take his WBO interim status from him so they don't have to deal with him anymore and so that they won't be under pressure to make the Charlo fight, because at that time, that's what Tszyu was after. He was Jermell Charlo's mandatory challenger. I never felt like they wanted to make that fight happen. The fight between Tim and Jermell, I never believed Jermell was injured.
I didn't.
How many times in how many videos did you hear me say that Tszyu versus Charlo fight? I don't believe it's going to happen. That fight won't see the light of day.
And it didn't.
I felt that the injury wasn't real. Jermell Charlo was trying to bide his time, trying to find a way out of it, and Canelo Alvarez landed on PBC Island at the right time. Time enough for Jermell Charlo to ditch the Tszyu fight for the Canelo fight.
Before Canelo even got over there, I told you it was never going to happen. After he got over there, it didn't.
As stated, I felt they were trying to set up Tszyu in Minneapolis. What they wanted was for Terrell Gausha to beat him. When that didn't happen, they were put in a rut. They were stuck.
They had to deal with him.
And now I think they're trying to set him up again because, like I said, it's very strange that Keith Thurman would accept a fight like this under these circumstances, and it's not even a big money fight.
In Australia, it would have been a big money fight. In Australia, it would have been a big event. But here,
it's not going to sell but so many tickets. They're going to end up giving a lot of tickets away if they haven't already. It's not going to do big numbers at the box office. You're not going to sell a bunch of pay-per-views with this thing.
It's not even for a title.
But he took the fight on anyway. Hindsight being 2020, that doesn't strike you as odd. That doesn't look strange to you. It looks strange to me. Enter Sebastian Fundora, who was already scheduled to box on that same card, opposite the ring Sergey Bohachuk, for the newly vacated WBC title.
That's what he was supposed to do. Now, that title was going to be on the line in the Tszyu versus Fundora fight.
It's going to be for 2 alphabet titles and not just one. It's not just for Tim's WBO title. The story now is it's going to be for the WBC as well, and the winner will have to face Sergey Bohachuk afterwards. That's what I'm hearing.
That's how it looks.
It looks like the old switcheroo to me. Looks like they're trying to catch Tszyu with his pants down. You have him train for a moving target who hasn't boxed in a while, a guy in his mid-30s. You have him train for that guy so that at the very last minute you can swap him out for the exact opposite, for a giant at junior middleweight.
Where Keith Thurman wants to move around and box from the outside, Sebastian Fundora wants to bang on the inside.
He's an inside fighter, a pressure fighter, the opposite of a Keith Thurman.
This is not what Tim was training for.
Preparation, gathering the right sparring partners to accommodate the situation that Sebastian Fundora is a very tall, very long, unusually tall and long junior middleweight.
It looks like a setup to me.
You want to call me a conspiracy theorist? Call me a conspiracy theorist. It doesn't change my mind. This looks off. This looks like a setup.
What use did a PBC have for an Australian national in the American market? They can't sell him. They don't know how.
If it were Top Rank, I could see if it were Top Rank, if it were Matchroom, but the PBC.
They have a hard enough time trying to sell American fighters, let alone Australian ones.
I believe they want to maintain full hegemonical control of all the belts at 154 pounds, and in order to do that, they got to get that brown belt away from Tim.
They know they can't sell him. Not here. They don't have the ability to do that.
They want to take the belt away from him and give it to Sebastian, who is an American national. He is based on the West Coast.
They're setting him up.
So can he come out of this on top? Can he come out of this, the junior middleweight division's unified champion?
Can he do it?
You know, under normal circumstances, not only would I pick Tszyu to beat Sebastian Fundora, under normal circumstances with a full camp and the right preparation, I'd pick Tim to knock him out, do him worse than Brian Mendoza did. But this is not normal circumstances. This is not a full camp. This is short notice.
You have to try and use the remaining time you have to prepare yourself for the exact opposite of what you were going to be facing.
What is that really? A little over a week's time to change everything? Because you don't spar. You don't go in there sparring the week of the fight. Said it. Been saying it from the beginning. Tszyu jumping into bed with these people was not a good idea. I know why he did it. Because he was pursuing a Charlo fight. Because he was pursuing that fight. But it stopped being about that fight a long time ago.
He's not undisputed anymore. The belts have been redistributed. They're scattered.
But he's still there now. Hopefully, he can adjust. He can deal with this. Come away with 2 alphabet titles instead of just the one. Get the hell out of there. Go to Top Rank. They do shows in Australia. They've got ties to the Australian continent. Or go to Matchroom. They have several Australian fighters.
And the junior middleweight champion, Israel Madrimov.
Timmy, I know you're listening. I know you're out there. You gotta get away from those people!
Don't you get the hell out of there!
Short notice opponents have a way of surprising a fighter because that's not what they were getting ready for. So now it's all different.
Is this a better fight than the Thurman fight would have been? Yeah, it's more intriguing. It's more interesting.
But I think they're setting him up. Finally, in men's heavyweight news, ahead of his upcoming undisputed title tilt with Tyson Fury, Alexander Usyk was asked why he didn't KO Anthony Joshua, to which he responded, "Why are you so bloodthirsty? There is victory. Everything is fine. Why is it necessary for a person to fall? He has a mother and a father. This is a big chunk of health if a person falls. I'm not for that." And myself. Well, I don't think that Usyk held off on knocking out Anthony Joshua because he didn't want to hurt him too bad. Put simply, I just think Anthony weathered the storm, he endured, and Usyk wasn't able to put him away. He wasn't able to knock him out. That if he saw the knockout was there, he would have went for it and he would have did it. But it wasn't there. Anthony hung on.
Then why did he answer the question like that?
Because he didn't like the question. He didn't like it. Here you have a guy who's won every single title on the road as the away fighter. Seldom ever had any advantages. Home field advantages or being the house fighter, physical advantages. He's seldom had any advantages, and you're asking him why didn't he knock the guy out?
Because beating him 2 times on the road wasn't enough?
He won the fight, didn't he? He's still unbeaten. He's unified and Ring Magazine champion, and that's not enough for you that you're asking him why didn't he get the knockout too?
This is the guy you think knocks out Fury?
Yes, because Tyson Fury's not Anthony Joshua. They're not the same person. When Anthony Joshua eats, Tyson Fury don't shit. Moreover, Anthony Joshua doesn't eat as much as Tyson Fury, and we can see that. We can see that from one fight to the next. Anthony's not staging fat camps like Tyson Fury does, like Tyson Fury has to. Look at how he went into the Ngannou fight, and look at how he looks now.
Fit and trim.
Fat camps, fitness camps. It's not a secret that Tyson Fury lets himself go in between fights, the same way it's not a secret that he's a drug addict.
I remember in 2015 or 2016, he told Rolling Stone he sniffed so much fucking coke.
Like he was bragging about it. Myself, I don't think for a second he kicked the habit. I don't think he's constantly wiping his nose and ganking, his jaws ganking, because he kicked the habit all these years later. No, he's still treating his nose. He's still on coke.
He's still a junkie.
His physical condition.
That's a part of why I think Usyk could stop him.
And the desire to win. Anthony Joshua tried his best to beat Alexander Usyk, not once, but twice. And when he failed, you saw that it bothered him. You saw he was broken up about it. He was really trying in there. This fight with Usyk, it doesn't mean to Fury what it meant to Anthony Joshua.
It doesn't.
Fury's the one who said that Undisputed is not a priority to him. It never was. It was always someone else's dream. Those were his words.
Think on that.
Think about what you normally see in a Usyk fight. How he has a way of draining his opponent's energy reserves with the pace that he sets for a match. Think about Anthony Joshua opposite the ring, Alexander Usyk. He was exhausted.
Usyk's not a power guy. If he came close to stopping Anthony, it wasn't because of strength of arms. It's because Anthony was exhausted.
It's the pace that Usyk sets for a match. And to Anthony Joshua's credit, he didn't go down, he didn't go out, he hung on because he wanted to win.
He endured.
But it's because he wanted to win. He desperately wanted to win. That's why he had that breakdown after the fight.
Do you think Tyson Fury wants it that bad?
I don't. I think he's only doing this because the Saudis are paying him a fuck ton of money to do it. But underneath it all, Undisputed doesn't matter to him, and I don't think he wants it as bad as Anthony did, as Usyk does.
So when the pace starts to catch up to him, the punches have landed, they're setting in,
They're having an effect on him. The pace is having an effect on him.
don't forget how he looked in the Ngannou fight.
That matters too. I don't see why it wouldn't. If physically you can't do what you're supposed to do against a guy who never really boxed before as a professional,
You couldn't do what you were supposed to do against a novice. What are you going to do against an expert?
with all these things in mind, that I entertain the possibility that Usyk doesn't just beat him, he might stop him. He might wear him out.
Because Fury doesn't care about Undisputed. He doesn't want it that bad.
Physically, he's a mess.